So, welcome to Grief Conversations. Today, I have with me my good friend Jiorgia Clark. She is a teacher in Eastern Washington, and she and I share the fact that we both have experienced the death of our moms. And so, today, we're just going to have a conversation around what it's like to grieve our moms not being with us anymore. So, welcome, Georgia. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get started, and why don't you just tell us about your mom?
Oh, she was a force. She has, um, she was definitely a strong personality. Also one who shaped very strong ideas of being in relationship and prioritizing those family relationships. Um, she was always in the picture. So she would come hell or high water, be participating in our lives and involved. And with my kids, especially, she was, when my third child had leukemia, she was kind of our rock. So, very involved, uh, very articulate, very distinguished and powerful in just how she loved people. So, that legacy has extended into you know the the way my sisters and I interact, as well as how we what we're passing on to the next generation with our children. So she was a life force. She was very intent on building relationships with people, and her journey was distinctly difficult. She was in a car accident in 2017 because of weather, and the resulting injury was quadriplegia. And that definitely truncated her ability to participate and be in our lives. And what it did was kind of flip the um, what she had gifted us all along, we could turn around and gift her in return.
Mhm.
So then we were able to participate in her life and in her care, and in really that expression of love that she had poured so distinctly into our lives. So we traipsed all over the place to make sure that she was safe and well and cared for and nurtured and loved, and that was as a direct result of how she mothered us, how she parented over the years. And then in 2021, her struggle with just the subsequent infections that come with that kind of impairment. And she'd struggled with sepsis several times. And I think the difficulty through COVID really did put her in a very vulnerable position. So we walked her into her eventual death in July of 2021. It was just, yeah, that was her path. But it was there were a lot of challenging things in all of that, and her pattern of living definitely created um, a really important culture of reciprocation and dedication and the spirit of love throughout all of that.
Yeah. We met, I think you and I met in 2018. And
Mm-hmm.
so I never actually got to meet your mom, but I feel like we were friends while your mom was still living, and kind of walked with you a little bit through the time of her death. And I feel like I know part of your mom because I know you. The way you describe your mom, I'm like, oh, that's Georgia. And so, so I think a lot of her legacy lives through you and probably your sisters, which I also have not met, but um, I would guess that there are pieces of your mom in each and every one of you, and I think in your
Yeah,
kids too.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that continual investment and the way that she loved, I think, has been I think the gift and all of it, that those, I can, when you talk to siblings, or when like you have that, the fabric of one's family, and you can see those traits of your mother and your siblings, you're like, mom just walked right out of your mouth. Um,
Yeah,
I find that I say that a lot with my sisters.
yeah. I see that too. My mom also died
Yeah.
she died in 2020,
Yeah.
November of 2020. And I see myself as I see her in me a
Mhm.
lot more often than I used to. And I see her in my sister a lot and my brother
Mhm.
as well. And also in my kids. It's fun when you get little snippets of the person you love so much who is so important in your life show up in other important people in your life. Sometimes I think at first it brought a kind of a mixed twinge of
Mm.
sadness but joy at the same time because you're missing that person but also so happy that they live on in other important people. I think for me now, a few years after, I almost well, I pray for those moments.
Yeah.
I long to see those moments where I see the people, especially my mom, in the people in my life.
There is great joy in that. I really do appreciate that there is a sense of the person that they are, that's invested in and nestled in each one of us. It is a joy. It is a joy to get to see those things.
Mhm. So your mom died in 2021. Um, how would you describe your grief since then?
The first 6 months were, I know a lot of people talk about there being just a fog, and that's exactly what I remember. I felt like a zombie all the time, especially in those first 6 months. Like I was going through the motions of life, but there was a distinct, um, almost detachment from
Mhm.
participating in real life. There was a lot of, like, I could keep track of things and dates and money, and I think um, like you go through those motions and you keep a calendar, and I think when you're not um, like a complete basket case, people are like, oh, you're doing so well considering, uh,
Right.
but you know that you're very much not there. I think
Yeah.
for me, there was a sense of being unanchored. Like there had been an actual
Yes.
fracture in that, what anchors you, because there is an understanding after you lose your mother, there is nobody who loves you like that. There's
Right.
nobody who has the duration of love, or the type of love, or the investment in you as a person, like your mom.
Right.
Your spouse doesn't, your children don't have that, your siblings don't have that. It is just a very different
Mhm.
relationship. And it was a sense of being kind of lost at sea. It
Mhm.
was uncomfortable for sure. A lot of, um, I do remember in the immediacy, um, doing a lot of sighing, like a lot of that. I It would hit me often, the grief pangs and the sadness, and I did feel like I could. And I remember describing this to my husband, that I these deep sighs kind of helped me get from like the like one of those pangs to the other. Like I could feel one coming on. You feel it in your body, and
Mhm.
needing to just give it a minute and release that breath,
Yeah.
um, just in an acknowledgement of like the frequency in moments of just not being okay. I'm not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there was a lot of that overwhelming, especially, you have a lot to do in preparation for a funeral,
Mhm.
and taking
Mhm.
care of those after life details, those financial things, and the headstone, and lots of decisions about how that's gonna go. And then you get kind of this wide open space out in front of you, and um, it is being unmoored.
Yeah. I agree. Like I felt like so I'd experienced the death of a spouse and I kind of this was my second like when my mom died was my
Mhm.
second big death, right? And I kind of just thought at that time I didn't really know much about grief, and I was learning, but I thought it would be similar, and it so wasn't. But so when my spouse died, I felt like I lost my future. But when
Mhm.
my mom died, I felt like I lost my
Yeah.
past. And it is, I think unanchored is a great term for it because it feels like those things I can always ask my mom, well, what did you do? Or do you remember when? And especially now my daughter's getting married, and the first person I wanted to call
Mhm.
was my mom and be like, do you remember when I told you I was getting married? And so there's like there's unanswered questions
Yeah.
too, because there's this whole past that I have no connection. Well, I have a connection, but no easy way to get answers. I can't just call mom and say, tell me about this. It is a
Yeah.
deep sense of loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And you can't even like as you move into the future, it's like there's no way to predict the kind of questions that you are going to need to ask your mom. So
mhm,
if and feeling like you lost them before, like out of sequence, I know with both of our moms that it seemed like there was a lot of life left to live,
yeah,
and there were a lot of milestones left for them to participate in. And so like you couldn't fast forward to understand, I should ask my mom this,
right,
or I should know this before. Like you couldn't know that this is how you were going to need your mom. And that is like just
right.
another layer of the grief. Is I There are times when I find, in my present life, like it would have been really nice to be able to have her help raising a teenage daughter. Lots of insight would have been so great.
Yeah,
She had, having raised three of them, a lot of that directional content.
yeah.
What to not lose sleep over, what to really dig deep into, based on her trial and error. Um,
Mhm.
but you don't even know that you don't know.
Right. And like it's been several years for both of us since our
Yeah.
mom died, but some of these things are still fresh. They I don't know that I actively grieve as much as I did for my mom as I did at first, but
Mhm.
there are moments throughout days, throughout like rites of passages
Yeah.
of my kids, of her grandchildren that she doesn't get to participate in. Those hit hard. And I think a lot of times people will be like, if you can just get through the first year, you'll get through the firsts without them. And the truth is, there's going to be firsts and seconds and thirds that are hard our
Hmm.
entire life because we have this deep connection with our moms.
Yeah.
And that doesn't go away when they die.
No.
The ability to speak with them or interact with them in the way that we did ends, but our connection to them remains. And so those things that we want to have more connection with and we can't, we grieve those as they continue to show up in our life year after year.
Yeah. Um I mean, even down to kind of like, um just ridiculous details of things, like recipes for things, or
Yes, yes.
things that like, also that like checking the narrative. So having been a child and then getting to adulthood and knowing I don't know that I remember that correctly, and being able to be like, do you remember this the same?
Yeah.
And having that adult perspective to pour into that. And so there's lots of, that urge to like, my mom would be the only one who would know this. um
Mhm.
I should, it's this normal natural impulse to refer back to your mom. And that is always a
Mhm.
point of grief too, when you're like, oh, I need to ask her, or this is still, even today, that impulse to like, I need to text her about this.
Mhm.
Or, and then also the more cerebral things, like she would have loved to watch my kid do this. She would
Yeah.
have loved to watch her grandkids, experience this and flourish in this way. And knowing that they would have celebrated and participated in very, important ways for their development.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Those I those are things that I think now I don't necessarily, they happen, I feel them, and I don't necessarily share them with anybody like I
Yeah.
used to. And I think that's something that we can get lost in and feel isolated sometimes when it's been 5, 6 years or whatever, and I have these pangs of grief, and it almost feels like I don't necessarily maybe have permission or even give myself permission to say, gosh, I just had a moment where I really missed mom and I need to take a second. Um, and so I think there's that whole phrase like time heals all wounds. And I don't know that time heals, but I think time softens, but
Mm.
there's also moments where it's not soft
Yeah.
and it's gonna hit like a ton of bricks. And I think, especially when it comes to the death of parent or a mom in particular, those things are going to hit hard. And I think maybe too, sometimes as women, like as we step into the role that our moms had,
Yeah.
there's a I know that this is true for me. I don't know if it's true for you, but I felt like, well, now it's my role to be what my mom was. And so, and I saw my mom as this incredibly strong woman
Yeah.
who could just do about anything.
Hmm.
And it wasn't that she didn't cry or she didn't struggle and she didn't share those things with me, but I think I see her as like this just amazingly strong woman. But now I want to step into that role, and I don't want to. Again, I put this on myself. I don't want to give the look or perception that I have any weakness. And that's kind of redefining like grief isn't weakness, but
Yeah.
our society kind of says it does, that it is. And so I think there's a strength though that I need to retell myself. There's a strength in allowing myself to grieve those moments even years later and share those with somebody. And I think that's really important.